The ropes had cut through the skin 3 days ago. Now Thomas Mercer couldn't feel his hands anymore. Just the cold. The kind of cold that burns worse than fire, working its way from fingertips to bone, from bone to something deeper. Something that felt like the end. 72 hours. That's how long a man can last without water. Tom knew this. Had known it since basic underwater demolition training in 1977, when instructors broke boys down into something harder. Something that didn't quit. But knowing and living are different animals. And right now, in the frozen hell of Montana's backcountry, with a blizzard screaming through the pines, like a wounded thing, Tom Mercer was learning the difference. His mouth tasted like copper and ash. The tongue had swollen so thick he couldn't close his jaw anymore. Every breath scraped down his throat like broken glass. Ice crystals clung to his eyebrows, his beard the few strands of gray hair that had escaped from under the wool cap they'd left him. Small mercy, that cap. Without it, his skull would have frozen solid by the second night. The tree they'd chosen stood at the northern edge of his property. Ancient white oak trunk, thick as a truck roots going down into Montana soil that had never known a plow. 200 acres of forest and creek and meadow all his. Had been his anyway, before 3 men in ski masks kicked in his door at midnight, before they had asked their questions, before he'd refused to answer. The blizzard had started on day 2. Tom watched it roll down from the mountains like God's own curtain falling white and total and merciless. Visibility dropped to nothing. The wind howled through the valley with a sound that wasn't quite natural, almost like voices, almost like his wife, Sarah, dead 17 years now, calling his name from somewhere in that white static. Tom closed his eyes, opened them. The hallucinations were getting worse. 3 days ago, he'd been strong, struggled against the ropes until his wrists bled through his shirt sleeves, the blood freezing into red ice that cracked when he moved. Shouted until his voice gave out completely, the sound swallowed by wind and distance, and the absolute certainty that no one was coming. His nearest neighbor lived 5 kilometers east, with roads buried under 3 feet of snow and the temperature dropping to 18 below. No one was driving anywhere. He'd stopped struggling on day 2, stopped shouting, started conserving. That's what SEALs do. Conserve, adapt, survive. 20 years in the teams had taught him that much. Gulf War, Somalia, Bosnia, places most Americans couldn't find on a map, doing things the government would never admit happened. Tom had survived all of it. Survived watching friends die in desert sand and Balkan snow. Survived coming home to find cancer had taken Sarah while he was overseas saving strangers. And now he was going to die tied to a tree in his own backyard because he'd seen something he shouldn't have seen. 2 weeks ago, that's when it started. Tom had been hiking the old logging trails up near Blackwater Creek, checking the fence line like he did every autumn before the first snow. The elk had been bad that year, pushing through the wire, and he'd wanted to patch it before winter locked everything down. He'd packed light, thermos of coffee, granola bar. The Ruger pistol he always carried in bear country, though he'd never had to use it. Not on bears anyway. The sound had reached him first. Metal on frozen earth, someone digging. Tom had dropped into a crouch without thinking, 30 years of training, kicking in like muscle memory. Moved quiet through the underbrush, using the wind to cover what little noise he made. Got close enough to see. 2 men, maybe 3. Hard to tell through the trees. They were working fast-focused, using a small camping shovel to excavate something from the base of a lightning-struck pine. Tom had stayed downwind perfectly still, watching through the scope of his binoculars as they pulled a metal box from the frozen ground. Military surplus by the look of it. Olive drab with rusted hinges. They'd opened it right there. Didn't remove the contents, just verified whatever was inside. One of them had nodded, the other had made a phone call voice too low to hear. Then they'd reburied it, covered their tracks, left. Tom should have left too. Should have walked away, forgotten what he'd seen, minded his own business, like he'd been doing for the past 17 years. But something in the way they'd move with the precision of it, the military efficiency had triggered something in him. Something that remembered what it felt like to have a mission. He'd waited 2 hours after they left. Then he'd gone to the tree. The box was exactly where they'd buried it. Tom had dug it up with his bare hands, dirt jamming under his fingernails, breath misting in the October cold. Heavy, maybe 15 pounds. The lock had been broken long ago, the hasp hanging loose. Inside, he'd found the truth, and the truth had signed his death warrant. But that was 2 weeks ago. Different lifetime. Right now, Tom Mercer was trying to remember why staying alive mattered. His daughter-in-law had died 6 years back. His son Jake was active duty deployed somewhere Tom wasn't cleared to know about. Jake's little girl Lily, 7 years old, lived with her daddy when he was stateside and with Jake's sister in Colorado when he wasn't. Sweet kid, liked horse and dinosaurs and asking questions Tom couldn't always answer. Would she remember him? Tom wondered. Would Jake tell her about Grandpa Tom, who'd lived alone in the Montana woods and died alone there too? The wind shifted. The temperature dropped another degree. Tom's body had stopped shivering hours ago. That was bad. That meant hypothermia was winning. His core temperature was dropping into the danger zone, the place where the body starts shutting down non-essential systems. Heart rate slowing, blood pressure falling, the brain getting fuzzy thoughts coming slower and slower until they stop coming at all. Almost peaceful in a way. Tom had always wondered how he'd go. Figured it would be a bullet back in the day, or maybe a car crash on one of these mountain roads when the ice caught him wrong. Never figured it would be like this. Tied up, helpless, waiting for the cold to finish what 3 masked men had started. He tried to pray, couldn't remember the words. Sarah had been the religious one, dragged him to church every Sunday when she was alive, and he'd sat through sermons thinking about mission briefings and kill counts and all the things you can't confess to a priest because they're still classified. After she died, he'd stopped going. Stopped believing in much of anything except the solid reality of wood and stone and the weight of a rifle in his hands. The sound came from his left, low, guttural. Not the wind this time. Tom forced his eyes open. The lids had started to freeze shut, ice crystals forming on the lashes. Everything was white, snow falling so thick he couldn't see 10 feet. But something was moving out there. Something big. The growl came again. Closer now. Tom's heart rate picked up, adrenaline fighting through the hypothermia fog. Bear. Had to be. Grizzlies denned up in winter, but a young male might still be out desperate and hungry and mean. And Tom, tied to this tree, bleeding from the wrists, probably smelled like an easy meal. He couldn't even close his eyes. Just watched the white static and waited for teeth. The shape materialized from the blizzard like something out of a fever dream. Not a bear, a dog. But calling it a ding was like calling a tiger a cat. Technically accurate, completely inadequate. The animal stood maybe 30 inches at the shoulder, had to weigh over 100 pounds, all of it muscle and bone and coiled violence. The coat was black as coal, dusted white with snow. The head was massive, square, with jaws that looked engineered to crush bone. And the eyes, dark and intelligent, and locked on Tom with an intensity that made his skin crawl. A cane corso. Tom recognized the breed. Italian Mastiff. Bred for war and hunting and guarding what needed guarding. The kind of dog that didn't bark warnings, just attacked. The hackles along its spine were raised, ears pinned flat against the skull. A low rumble vibrated from somewhere deep in its chest. Not quite a growl, not quite anything Tom had heard before. The sound seemed to bypass his ears entirely and resonate in his rib cage. This is it, Tom thought. 3 days of freezing, just to get eaten in the end. There was probably a joke in their hair somewhere. He tried to speak, managed a sound that might have been words in another life. The dog's ears twitched, moved closer. Tom could see the muscles bunching under that black coat, could see the teeth, white against black, each one sharp enough to tear through flesh like paper. The animal stopped 3 feet away, looked at Tom, really looked with an awareness that seemed almost human. Then it did something Tom's hypothermia-addled brain couldn't process. It whined, soft, almost questioning. Then the massive head lowered and a tongue rough and warm dragged across Tom's face. The sensation shocked him worse than the cold. Wet. Alive. The dog was licking his mouth, his cracked lips depositing saliva like medicine. Tom's body responded instinctively, trying to swallow that moisture. And oh God, it hurt, throat muscles screaming. But underneath the pain was something else. Relief, tiny, fragile, but real. The dog pulled back, studied Tom with those dark eyes, then turned and vanished into the blizzard. No, Tom tried to call it back. Nothing came out, just that same broken rasp. The loneliness crashed down harder than before. For 30 seconds, maybe a minute, something living had been there with him. Something warm. And now it was gone and Tom was alone again, with the wind and the cold and the certainty that he'd imagined the whole thing. Hallucination. His brain shutting down, throwing up random images as the neurons started to die. But then the black shape came back. It was carrying something in its mouth. Tom squinted, trying to focus. Plastic. A bottle. Old and dirty and half crushed, but definitely a bottle. The kind hikers left behind, careless and thoughtless, and right now more valuable than gold. The dog moved past Tom, disappearing behind the oak tree. Tom heard splashing. Water. There was a creek back there, he knew. 20 yards through the trees, still running despite the cold, fed by a spring that never quite froze. When the Cane Corso returned, the bottle was heavy with water. What happened next, Tom would replay in his mind for the rest of his life. The dog approached slowly, carefully, like it understood how fragile Tom was. Sat down, gripped the bottle in his jaws at an angle, then tilted its head. Water poured out. Not a stream, just droplets, at first landing on Tom's lips, his tongue trickling into his mouth. He swallowed, choked. The dog waited, tried again. This time Tom was ready, swallowed properly, felt that water hit his stomach like salvation. 3 times the animal made the trip. 3 times it filled that battered plastic bottle from the creek and brought it back and poured water into the mouth of a dying man. By the 3rd trip, Tom could swallow without choking, could feel his thoughts clearing just a little, enough to realize this wasn't a hallucination. This was real and impossible and happening. When the dog seemed satisfied Tom had drunk enough, it set the bottle down and moved closer, sniffed at the ropes binding Tom's wrists. The sound it made then was different. Still a growl, but angrier. Directed at the ropes, not at Tom. Then those jaws opened wide and clamped down on the rope. Tom felt the pressure, but not pain. The dog was being careful, teeth working at the fibers, pulling, tearing. The rope was marine-grade thick and weather-resistant. The kind of rope you use to tie down boats in a storm, not the kind that breaks easy. But the Cane Corso didn't stop. Worked at it like a job, methodical and patient and utterly determined. Tom could see scars on the animal's muzzle now. Old wounds. A long line that ran from the corner of its mouth up toward the left eye, cutting through the black fur in a pale line. And just like that, Tom remembered. 2 years ago, October, late evening after a trip into town for supplies. He'd been driving the old logging road back to the house, headlights cutting through rain and darkness. Almost didn't see it, just a shape at the roadside, small and wrong. Tom had stopped the truck, grabbed his flashlight, and found a puppy. 3 months old, maybe 4. Cane Corso, he'd known even then, recognizing the big paws and square head. But what had been done to it? Tom's hands had shaken with rage when he'd cut the barbed wire wrapped around the puppy's muzzle and front legs. Someone had bound it and dumped it like garbage, left it to die slow. The muzzle had been torn open, blood everywhere. Tom had wrapped the puppy in his jacket and driven straight to White Pine, the closest town with a vet. Dr. Helen Carter had taken one look and started prepping for surgery. $2,400. That's what it had cost to save the puppy's life. Money Tom had been saving to fix the roof on the house where the leak in the northwest corner was getting worse every year. but he'd paid it, hadn't even thought twice. 3 weeks, the puppy had stayed at Tom's place while the stitches healed. Sarah's old blanket for a bed, hamburger and rice because that's all the vet said to feed him. Tom had named him Titan, stupid name for a puppy, but it had fit. Then his nephew, Marcus Hayes, had shown up. Marcus ran a ranch 10 kilometers south, had the space and the time for a big dog. Tom was 65 years old, living alone, no business keeping a 100-pound mastiff. Marcus had promised to take good care of Titan, and Tom had let him go because it was the sensible thing to do. And now 2 years later, in the middle of a blizzard that should have killed them both, Titan was here, working at the ropes, saving Tom's life the same way Tom had saved his. How? The question echoed in Tom's head. How did you know? How did you find me? How did you escape from Marcus? How did you know I needed you? The first rope parted with a sound like a gunshot. Tom's left arm felt completely numb. Dead weight. He couldn't move. It couldn't feel it, but it was free. Titan moved to the right wrist immediately, jaws working at the second rope. This one took longer. 17 minutes by Tom's count, though time was getting slippery again. But the dog didn't quit, just worked and worked until finally, blessedly, the second rope snapped. Tom collapsed forward. Would have hit the ground face first if Titan hadn't been there bracing against him. The dog was warm, so warm. Tom leaned into that warmth, trying to remember how to make his arms work. Can't stay here. The thought cut through the fog. Have to move. Have to get inside. Inside the house. 150 yards through 3 feet of snow. Might as well be 100 miles. Tom tried to stand. His legs buckled immediately, muscles locked up from 3 days in the same position. He went down hard face in the snow. Titan barked. Sharp. Urgent. Get up. Tom tried, couldn't. His body wasn't responding anymore. The hypothermia really had him shutting down everything non-essential, which apparently included the ability to walk. Teeth clamped onto his jacket collar. Titan started pulling. 130 pounds of cane corso, dragging 170 pounds of mostly frozen human through deep snow. Tom tried to help, pushing with his forearms when he could, but mostly he was dead weight. Mostly he was cargo, and Titan pulled him anyway. The journey took forever and no time at all. Tom faded in and out, consciousness coming in flashes. Snow, movement, the sound of Titan's breathing heavy and determined, the scrape of his own boots dragging through ice, then wood under his back, porch steps, the door. Tom forced his eyes open. His house, right there, 10 feet away, locked. The irony would have made him laugh if he'd had the breath. Saved from freezing, can't get in his own house. But Titan was already moving. The dog door. Sarah had insisted on installing it years back when they'd had a golden retriever named Charlie. Charlie had died 8 years ago. Tom had never bothered to seal up the door, just left it one more ghost of a happier time. Titan squeezed through the dog door, disappeared inside. Tom heard scrabbling, then a thump, then another, then the sound of the deadbolt turning. The front door swung open. Titan had jumped, hit the lever-style door handle, gotten it open, then somehow manipulated the deadbolt with his paws. Tom stared at the open door at the darkness inside and felt something close to religious awe. This dog, this impossible, brilliant dog. Tom crawled 4 feet, that's all it was, 4 feet from the perch into his living room. His arms shook, his vision tunneled, but he made it. Collapsed on the wooden floor inside the door, still hanging open behind him, snow blowing in. Titan grabbed the door in his teeth and pulled it shut. Tom lay there on his own floor in his own house and tried to process being alive. The house was cold. Power was out, had been for days probably, but it was shelter. 4 walls and a roof between him and that killing wind. Titan lay down beside him, close enough that Tom could feel the heat radiating from that massive body, close enough to matter. Tom's eyes drifted to the far wall. The old radio, battery-powered because Tom didn't trust anything that depended on the grid. He'd bought it at an Army surplus store in 1998, right after moving to Montana. Still worked. He tested it every month. He had to reach it, had to call for help. Tom started crawling again. Across his own living room, every foot a marathon. Titan walked alongside him, not helping, just present, just there. The radio sat on a shelf 3 feet up. Tom pulled himself upright, using the bookshelf legs threatening to give out. Grabbed the radio, nearly dropped it, held on, turned the dial to emergency frequency, pressed the call button. Nothing. Tom's heart sank. Battery dead. Of course. Why would anything be easy? But then static crackled, a voice distant and distorted. "This is dispatch. Identify yourself." Tom pressed the transmit button, tried to speak. Nothing came out but a wheeze. Tried again. "This is Thomas Mercer, property at 4150 Blackwater Road. Medical emergency. Need immediate assistance." Static, then a woman's voice, professional and flat. "Mr. Mercer, roads are closed, blizzard conditions. We cannot reach you at this time. Estimate 48 hours minimum before roads are passable." Tom closed his eyes. 48 hours. He'd be dead in 48 hours. "I understand. Just please note that I called. Note the time." Silence. Then, "Noted. Anything else?" Tom started to say no, then stopped. Because there was something else. Something important. "If something happens to me, tell my son, Jake Mercer, active duty. Tell him I'm sorry." The dispatcher's voice softened slightly. "We'll make note of that, sir. Hang in there." The radio clicked off. Tom set it down carefully, looked at Titan. The dog was watching him with those intelligent eyes. "Well, boy, guess it's just us for a while." Titan's tail moved. Not quite a wag, just an acknowledgement. Tom made it to the couch, collapsed onto it, found an old wool blanket Sarah had made back when her hands still worked before the cancer got into her bones. Pulled it over himself. Titan jumped up beside him, which should have been against the rules, but Tom was too tired to care. The dog was warm. The blanket was warm. For the first time in 72 hours, Tom Mercer felt something other than cold. He was starting to drift when the sound came. An engine. Outside, getting closer. Tom's eyes snapped open. Titan was already on his feet. Hackles raised, that rumble building in his chest again. The engine cut off. Doors open. Footsteps on the porch. Multiple people. Tom tried to sit up. His body refused. He was too weak. Used everything he had left, just getting inside. The footsteps stopped at the door. Then came the knock. 3 hard pounds. "Tom, we know you're in there. Time to finish our conversation." The voice was familiar. Tom had heard it 3 days ago, right before the hood came off, and he'd seen the faces of the men who'd tied him to that tree. They'd come back. And this time Tom couldn't run. Titan positioned himself between Tom and the door, not barking, just standing there. 130 pounds of solid muscle and absolute loyalty. The growl had stopped, but something worse had replaced it. A silence that felt like a held breath before violence. The door handle rattled. Locked. But locks are just suggestions to men with tools and bad intentions. Tom heard metal on metal. Lockpick. Or maybe they'd just kick it in. Didn't matter. They were coming in. And Tom, weak as a newborn, couldn't stop them. His hand found Titan's head. Thick fur. Warm. Real. "Good boy," Tom whispered. "Whatever happens. Good boy." The lock clicked open. The door started to swing inward. Light from outside cut into the darkened living room. Flashlight beams, 3 of them. And standing in that doorway, backlit by snow and darkness, were the men who'd left Tom to die. Except Tom wasn't dead. Not yet, and he wasn't alone. Titan's growl started again. Low, primordial, the sound a wolf makes before it tears into prey. The men in the doorway stopped, stared at the dog, then at Tom, and one of them laughed. The first man through the door was young, late 20s maybe, Thin-billed, nervous energy eyes that kept darting between Tom and the dog, like he was trying to calculate odds he didn't like. He wore a black tactical jacket and jeans caked with frozen mud. His hands were empty, but Tom could see the bulge of a pistol under the jacket. The second man was older, early 40s, moved with the careful precision of someone who'd had training, military or law enforcement. Tom's brain cataloged automatically. 6 foot tall, broad shoulders, face hard as Montana granite. Deputy sheriff's badge clipped to his belt, catching the flashlight beam. But it was the third man who made Tom's blood run cold. Victor Hale, the son. Tom recognized him from town. That arrogant smile, that way of moving like the world owed him space. Victor looked at Tom, then at Titan. Then he smiled. "What's this? You got yourself a guard dog now, old man." His voice was smooth, educated, the kind of voice that came from private schools and connections, and never hearing the word no. He turned to the deputy. "Deacon, you didn't mention the mutt." The deputy, Deacon Cole, kept his eyes on Titan. "Wasn't here 3 days ago. Must be a stray." Victor laughed, moved deeper into the room. Titan's growl increased in volume, the sound resonating off the walls. Victor stopped, reconsidered, stayed near the door. "Easy, killer. We're just here to talk to your friend." Tom tried to sit up straighter. Failed. His body was still shutting down, hypothermia and dehydration, and 72 hours of torture taking their toll. But his mind was clearing, enough to be afraid, enough to understand exactly how much danger he was in. The third man there, nervous one, closed the door behind them, locked it. Tom heard the deadbolt slide home and felt the trap close. Victor pulled off his gloves. Expensive leather, the kind that probably cost more than Tom spent on groceries in a month. He looked around the living room, taking in the modest furniture, the old photographs on the wall, the life Tom had built in this place. Nice house. Shame about the power. Must be rough living out here all alone. No neighbors, no help, roads closed. He looked at Tom. "Nobody even knows you're alive, except us." Tom's throat was still raw. When he spoke, his voice came out like gravel scraping metal. "What do you want?" Victor's smile widened. "Oh, he talks. Deacon, you said he wasn't talking. You said 3 days would make him talk." Deacon Cole's expression didn't change. "He didn't talk then, won't talk now. We're wasting time." Victor held up a hand. "Patience, my friend, we've got all night." He turned back to Tom. "You know what we want, Thomas. May I call you Thomas? Or do you prefer Tom?" Tom said nothing. Conserved his energy. Let them talk. SEALs are trained to resist interrogation, to wait, to survive. "The box, Tom." Victor's voice lost its friendly edge. "The metal box you took from Blackwater Creek 2 weeks ago. The one that wasn't yours. The one you had no business touching." "Don't know what you're talking about." Victor sighed. "Theatrical. Over the top. Really, we're going to play this game fine. Let me refresh your memory. October 17th, you were hiking near the old logging trails. You saw something you shouldn't have seen. And then, because you couldn't mind your own business, you went back and took something that belongs to my family." Tom kept his face neutral, but inside his mind was racing. They'd been watching him, following him, known about the box from the beginning. "Still don't know what you mean." The slap came so fast, Tom didn't see it coming. Victor's hand cracked across his face, snapping his head sideways. Tom tasted blood, fresh copper mixing with the old. Titan exploded, went from sitting to airborne in half a second. Victor stumbled backward, terror flashing across his face. Deacon Cole drew his weapon of Glock 19, pointing it at the dog. "Stop!" Tom's shout froze everyone. Titan landed between Tom and Victor, teeth bared, every muscle coiled. But he didn't attack. Waited. "Good boy. Stay." Titan stayed. But the growl didn't stop. Victor recovered his composure, smoothed down his jacket, looked at Tom with new respect and newer hatred. "Impressive. You've got him trained. But here's the thing, Tom. He touched his face where Titan's jaws had come within inches. That mutt can't protect you from all three of us. And he definitely can't protect you from a bullet. Deacon kept the Glock trained on Titan. The young guy, Kyle Warren, pulled his own weapon. Smaller caliber, 9 millimeter. His hand shook slightly. Last chance, old man. Victor's voice went cold. Where is the box? Tom met his eyes. Said nothing. Victor nodded to Deacon. Do it. Deacon shifted his aim from Titan to Tom, pointed the gun at Tom's knee. Your call. Tell us, or I start breaking parts of you that don't heal. Tom had been tortured before. Somalia, 1993. Captured for 18 hours by militia fighters who knew all the old ways of making a man scream. He'd lasted. Hadn't broken. But he'd been 36 then. Strong, healthy, not hypothermic and half dead. He looked at Titan. The dog was still positioned between Tom and the three men. Guardian, protector, prepared to die defending someone who'd shown him kindness 2 years ago. Tom couldn't let that happen. Barn. Tom's voice was barely a whisper. Hidden in the barn, northwest corner, under the floorboards. Victor's smile returned. See, was that so hard? Kyle go check. Kyle Warren holstered his weapon. Headed for the back door. Tom heard it open, felt the blast of cold air, heard it slam shut. Victor pulled up a chair, sat down like this was a social visit. You know what's funny? Tom, you could have just left it alone. You could have seen us digging, turned around, gone home, forgotten the whole thing. But no, you had to play hero, had to stick your nose where it doesn't belong. What's in the box? Tom asked. Victor laughed. You opened it and you're asking me what's in it. Come on, Tom. You're smarter than that. Evidence. Tom kept his voice steady. Evidence of a murder. Victor's smile vanished. Now we're getting somewhere. Yes, evidence. Very old evidence. Evidence that was supposed to stay buried forever. But my father, in his infinite wisdom, decided to dig it up, verify it was still there, make sure 30 years of secrets were still safe. He tilted his head. You know who my father is, Tom. Tom knew. Everyone in these parts knew. Sheriff Wade Hale, 40 years in law enforcement. Respected, feared, untouchable. I know. Then you understand why that box can't exist anymore. Why you can't exist anymore. Victor stood, walked to the window, looked out at the blizzard. My father built everything we have on that secret. Our house, our reputation, my future. And you, some washed-up Navy SEAL hiding in the woods you think you can destroy, that I wasn't hiding. Tom felt anger cutting through the exhaustion. I was living. You were hiding, Victor snapped, running from whatever war crimes you committed overseas, playing hermit, and now you're going to die a hermit, he turned back. But first you're going to tell me who else knows. Who did you tell about the box? Nobody, liar, truth. Victor studied him, looking for tells, for cracks. Tom kept his face blank. SERE training, survival, evasion, resistance, escape, drilled into him over 20 years. Never give them what they want. The back door opened again. Kyle came in shaking snow off his jacket, empty-handed. It's not there. I checked everywhere, pulled up every loose board I could find. Nothing. Victor's jaw clenched. He looked at Tom. You lied to me. Tom said nothing, bought himself maybe 10 minutes. That was something, and Victor moved fast, grabbed Tom by the shirt, hauled him up off the couch. Tom's legs buckled. Victor held him upright by sheer force. Titan barked, sharp warning. Deacon swung the Glock toward the dog. Don't, Titan froze. But every muscle was tensed, ready. Victor slammed Tom against the wall. Where is it really? Tom's vision swam. The room spun, but somewhere deep in his SEAL training, a voice was screaming, fight back, do something, don't let them win, safe. Tom gasped. In town, bank vault, another lie. But it bought more time. Victor dropped him. Tom collapsed, hitting the floor hard. Tasted blood again. Which bank First National? White Pine. Victor pulled out his phone. No signal. Of course. The blizzard had taken out the cell towers. He looked at Deacon. Can't verify until the storm clears. We've got maybe 24 hours before roads open and someone comes looking. Deacon nodded. Then we finish this now. Make it look like he died from exposure. Body won't be found until spring thaw anyway. Victor considered, then shook his head. No, we need the box. If it's really in a bank vault, we need him alive to access it. He's not going to cooperate, Deacon said flatly. He will. Victor smiled. We just need the right motivation. He turned to Tom. You have family, don't you, Tom? A son, Jake Mercer, Navy SEAL like Daddy, and a granddaughter, Lily, 7 years old, lives in Colorado most of the time. But right now, according to our information, she's on her way here with her father, Christmas visit. Tom's heart stopped. Jake was coming. With Lily. Victor saw the reaction, smiled wider. There it is. There's the crack. You don't care what happens to you, do you, Tom? Old man lived your life ready to die. But them, he crouched down to Tom's level. You give us that box, or when your son walks through that door with your granddaughter, we'll be waiting. And I promise you what happened to you will look merciful compared to what we'll do to them. Tom lunged. Pure instinct, pure rage. Drove his fist into Victor's face with every ounce of strength he had left. It wasn't much. Victor barely rocked back, but it was enough to wipe the smile off his face. Titan didn't wait, launched himself at Victor like a black missile. 130 pounds of furious cane corso jaws aimed at Victor's throat. Deacon fired. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Titan yelped, twisted midair, hit the ground hard, slid across the wooden floor. No, Tom crawled toward the dog. Titan was trying to stand front leg buckling. Blood on the black fur. Shoulder wound. Not fatal, but bad. Victor scrambled to his feet, hand on his face where Tom had hit him. His nose was bleeding. He looked at Deacon. Secure the dog, then secure him. We're done playing nice. Kyle grabbed Tom, hauled him up. Tom fought, weak as he was. Got an elbow into Kyle's ribs. Kyle grunted, slammed Tom face first into the wall. Tom's vision exploded white. When it cleared, his hands were being zip-tied behind his back. Plastic cutting into his wrists exactly where the rope burns were. Fresh agony. Titan was being dragged toward the door by Deacon. The dog was fighting, trying to get back to Tom, but the shoulder wound was bleeding bad and he was weakening. Leave him alone, Tom shouted. His voice cracked. He's just a dog. Just a dog that tried to kill me, Victor said. He wiped blood from his nose. We're going to put that mutt somewhere he can't interfere. Then you and I are going to have a real conversation about where that box actually is. They dragged Titan outside. Tom heard the barn door open, heard Titan's barks turn desperate. Then the door slammed and the barking became muffled. Victor came back inside, brushed snow off his coat, sat down in Tom's chair like he owned it. Now then, let's try this again. Where is the box? Tom said nothing, stared at the wall. Victor sighed, stood, walked to the kitchen, opened drawers until he found what he was looking for. Came back holding a hunting knife, Tom's own knife, 8-inch blade, razor sharp. I didn't want to do this, Tom. I really didn't. But you're not giving me a choice. He grabbed Tom's hand, pressed the blade against his palm. One finger for every lie. How many you got left? The pain was immediate and absolute. Tom bit down, refusing to scream. Blood ran down his wrist. Stop, the voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. Kyle stood there, phone in his hand. Got a weak signal. Your dad called. Roads are clearing faster than expected. He wants us out of here now. Victor pulled the knife back. Tom's hand throbbed, adding new pain to the catalog. How fast? 12 hours, maybe. Plows are working overnight. Victor swore, looked at Tom, then at the window, then back at Tom. Fine, we're out of time anyway. He turned to Deacon. Plan B, burn it all. What you heard me, burn the house with him in it. Blizzard will cover the smoke. By the time anyone finds him, there won't be enough left to prove anything except an old man died in a winter fire. Deacon hesitated. My job is on the line here too, Victor. If this goes wrong, it won't. Victor's voice went hard. My father has protected you for 20 years. Don't forget who you work for. Now get the gasoline from the truck. Deacon left, came back 5 minutes later with 2 red gas cans, started pouring. The smell filled the room, sharp and wrong and terrifying. Tom watched them work, calculated. He was tied to the chair, door was locked, windows were frozen shut. Titan was locked in the barn, no weapons, no escape. This was it. This was how Thomas Mercer died. Victor stood in front of him one last time. You know what the saddest part is? That box you took. Everything in it is 30 years old. Statute of limitations has run out on most of the crimes. We could have fought it in court, probably won. But now you die for nothing. He pulled out a lighter. Sleep tight, Tom. The lighter sparked. Flame caught. Victor dropped it onto the gasoline-soaked floor. Fire bloomed, spread fast, impossibly fast, running along the trails of gasoline like living things racing for a finish line. The heat hit Tom in a wave. Victor and his men headed for the door. Stopped. Victor turned back. Oh, almost forgot. He smiled. That mutt in the barn door's steel, locked solid. He's not getting out. So you can die knowing your hero dog dies too. Seems fitting. Then they were gone. Door slamming, engine starting, headlights cutting through the blizzard as they drove away. Tom pulled at the zip ties. Plastic bit deeper. The fire was climbing the walls now, eating the curtains Sarah had sewn, the bookshelf where Tom kept his old paperbacks, the photographs of their wedding day. Heat, smoke. Tom's eyes watered. His lungs burned. The old couch caught fire flames jumping 6 feet high. This was real. This was happening. He was going to burn to death in his own living room. From the barn, Tom heard Titan, barking, frantic, desperate, the sound of a massive animal throwing itself against a steel door over and over. I'm sorry, boy, Tom whispered. I'm sorry I couldn't save you this time. The smoke was getting thicker. Tom's vision blurred. Not from tears, from hypoxia. The fire was eating the oxygen faster than he could breathe it. He thought about Jake, wondered if his son would get here in time to see the ashes, wondered if Lily would remember the grandfather who used to let her ride on his shoulders through these woods, wondered if the box he'd hidden, truly hidden where they'd never find it, would ever see the light of day. The world was going gray. Tom's head dropped forward, consciousness fading. Then came the sound, not from the barn this time, from outside. Far away but getting closer. Another howl, different pitch. Not Titan, another dog. Tom's eyes opened. Through the smoke and flames through the window, not yet consumed, he saw movement in the blizzard. Shapes, multiple shapes, running toward the house. But that was impossible. Tom was hallucinating. Dying brain throwing up false hope. The front door exploded inward. Not from the fire, from impact. Someone had kicked it open with enough force to splinter the frame. A figure came through the smoke. Tall, moving with the careful efficiency of someone trained to enter hostile spaces, wearing winter tactical gear, face obscured by a scarf. The figure reached Tom, pulled a knife, cut the zip ties in one motion, grabbed Tom under the arms, started dragging him toward the door. Tom tried to help. His legs wouldn't work. Just dead weight. The figure didn't complain, just pulled harder. They made it outside. The cold air hit Tom like salvation. He sucked it in, coughing, choking on it. The figure lowered Tom into the snow, pulled down the scarf. Jake Mercer, 35 years old, Tom's son, face weathered by desert sun and mountain cold, eyes the same gray as Tom's. Navy SEAL, active duty, home on leave, and very much not supposed to be here yet. Dad. Jake's voice cracked. Oh God, Dad. Behind him, Tom saw her. Lily, 7 years old, blonde hair poking out from under a pink winter hat, being held back by Jake's service dog, a golden retriever named Scout. The dog pressed close to Lily, trained to protect. Jake pulled Tom further from the burning house, laid him down in snow that should have felt cold but felt perfect. The barn. Tom gasped. Titan, he's in the barn. Jake looked at the barn, steel door, already on his feet and running. Tom watched his son sprint through the blizzard, watched him reach the barn, try the door. Locked from outside with a padlock, Jake didn't hesitate, pulled his sidearm, shot the lock. The barn door exploded outward. Titan came through it like a black avalanche, limping on the injured shoulder but moving. Alive. The dog ran straight to Tom, laid down beside him in the snow, put his massive head on Tom's chest. Good boy. Tom's hand found Titan's head. Good boy. You held on. Jake came back, knelt beside them, looked at the burning house, at his father, at Titan. What happened? Long story. Tom's voice was fading again. But before he could say more, before he could warn Jake about Victor and Wade and the danger they were all in, his eyes closed. The last thing he heard was Lily's voice, small and scared, calling for her grandpa. Then darkness took him. Tom woke to warmth, not the killing heat of fire, the good kind. Blankets, a sleeping bag, something soft under his head. His eyes opened slowly. He was in a truck. Big one. Ford Raptor by the look of the interior. Lily was curled up in the back seat, asleep under a pink winter coat. Titan lay on the floor beside her head, resting on his paws, watching Tom with those dark, intelligent eyes. Jake sat in the driver's seat, engine running, heat pouring from the vents. Welcome back. Jake's voice was careful, controlled, the voice of someone holding back about 1,000 questions. Tom tried to sit up. His body screamed in protest. Everything hurt. Wrists, hands, face. The cut on his palm where Victor had pressed the knife. How long was I out? 20 minutes. Jake handed him a water bottle. Small sips. Don't chug it. Tom drank. The water was heaven. He looked past Jake at the burning house through the windshield. The whole structure was engulfed now. Flames climbing into the night sky, sparks swirling up into the blizzard like angry stars. Everything I own is in there. You're alive. That's what matters. Jake paused. Dad, what happened? Who did this? Tom met his son's eyes. Saw Sarah there, saw himself. Saw the kind of man who'd spent his life running toward danger instead of away from it. How did you get here? Roads were closed. They were. Jake looked out at the blizzard. Still are officially. But I've driven in worse. Afghanistan, Syria, few others I can't talk about. He glanced at Lily, made sure she was still asleep. Got your 911 call logged. Something felt wrong, so I came anyway. You walked 15 miles. 12. Had to leave the truck when it got stuck. Jake smiled slightly. Met your dog about halfway. He found us. Led us straight here like he knew exactly where we needed to go. Tom looked at Titan. The dog's tail moved once. Acknowledgement. He saved my life. Tom's voice was rough. Twice now. I saw the ropes on the ground. By the tree. Jake's jaw tightened. Someone tied you out there. Left you to die. 3 men. Tom laid it out. Fast and efficient. The box. The evidence. Victor Hale. Deacon Cole. Kyle Warren. The murder from 1995, Sheriff Wade's secrets. Everything. Jake listened without interrupting. When Tom finished, his son was quiet for a long moment. Where's the box now, the real location? Tom almost smiled. You caught that. You told them the barn, then the bank. Both lies. So where is its safe place? Tom looked at the burning house. Very safe place. Dad. The well. Tom pointed toward the back of the property. The old stone well behind the barn, sealed it up 20 years ago when we drilled the modern one. Boxes wrapped in waterproof tarp lowered down 30 feet on a cable. They'll never find it. Jake nodded, started to speak, then stopped. Headlights cut through the blizzard. Multiple vehicles coming up the access road. That's not the fire department. Jake's hand moved to his sidearm. Natural. Automatic. The vehicle stopped 50 yards out. Doors open. 4 men got out of one SUV, 2 from another. Flashlight beams swept across the burning house. Found Jake's truck. A voice called out through the storm. "This is Sheriff Wade Hale. Identify yourselves." Tom's blood went cold. He looked at Jake. "That's him. That's the man we're fighting." Jake's expression went flat. Combat mode. He opened his door, stepped out into the blizzard, kept one hand near his weapon. "Jake Mercer, Navy SEAL. This is my father's property." Wade Hale walked forward into the flashlight beams. He was tall, built like he'd been strong once and still remembered how. White hair under a sheriff's hat, face lined with 68 years of Montana winters and buried secrets. He wore his uniform with the easy confidence of someone who'd never been questioned, never been challenged. Behind him, Tom recognized 2 of the other men, Deacon Cole, Kyle Warren. The rest were deputies, armed, alert. "Your father." Wade's voice was deep, gravelly. "Where is he in the truck?" "Hypothermia, smoke inhalation, needs medical attention." Wade looked at the burning house. Terrible thing. These old houses, electrical fires in winter, very common. He turned back to Jake. "I assume you called 911. Roads are closed. No ambulance is coming. Then I'll have my men transport him to the hospital." Wade gestured to Deacon. "Get Thomas Mercer into our vehicle. We'll take him to White Pine." Tom pulled himself upright in the truck, opened his door, stepped out on legs that barely held him. "I'm not going anywhere with you, Wade." The sheriff stopped, looked at Tom like seeing a ghost. "Thomas, thank God you're alive. When we got the call about the fire, I feared the worst. You feared I'd survive." Silence. The only sound was the blizzard and the crackling of burning wood. Wade's expression didn't change. "I don't know what you think you know, Tom, but you've been through a trauma. Hypothermia can cause confusion, hallucinations." "I know exactly what I know." Tom's voice was getting stronger. The water and warmth had brought him back. "Not all the way, but enough. You killed David Sullivan in 1995. Made it look like a hunting accident. Took bribes from the drug runners using the Canadian border. And when you found out I had proof, you sent your son to kill me." Wade smiled, sad, pitying. The smile of someone who thinks he's already won. "That's quite a story. Unfortunately, there's no proof, no evidence, just the paranoid ravings of a traumatized old man." "The box says otherwise." "What box?" Wade spread his hands. "You mean the one you claim is in a bank vault? Or was it in the barn? Your story keeps changing, Tom." Behind Wade, Tom saw Victor's truck pull up. Victor got out, saw his father, saw Tom alive. His face went white. Wade didn't turn around, kept his eyes on Tom. "My son told me you had some kind of evidence. We searched everywhere, found nothing. So either it doesn't exist or you destroyed it in the fire. Either way, you've got no proof of anything." Jake moved to stand beside his father. "I believe him. You're his son." "Of course you believe him." Wade's voice stayed calm. "But belief isn't evidence. And without evidence, this is just an old man's conspiracy theory." Tom felt Titan press against his leg. The dog had climbed out of the truck, stood between Tom and Wade, that low rumble building in his chest again. "Even your dog knows when to stand down." Wade looked at Titan. "That's a cane Corso. Expensive breed. Where'd you get him?" "I saved his life," Tom said. 2 years ago, someone wrapped him in barbed wire and left him to die. I cut him free, paid for his surgery, gave him a chance." "Noble." Wade nodded. "And yet here he is injured. Gunshot wound from the looks of it. He looked at Tom. You shoot your own dog, Tom. One of your men did. When Titan tried to protect me, Wade turned to his deputies. Anyone here shoot a dog tonight? Silence. Deacon and Kyle kept their faces blank. No. Wade turned back to Tom. Then I'm afraid that's another story that doesn't check out. Tom felt the rage building. 20 years of staying quiet, staying hidden, staying safe. All of it burning away like the house behind him. You're not gonna get away with this. Get away with what? Wade's voice went hard, responding to a fire call. Trying to help a confused elderly veteran who's clearly suffering from exposure and trauma. He looked at Jake. Son, your father needs psychiatric help and medical attention. Let us transport him for his own good. Jake's hand stayed near his weapon. He's not going anywhere with you. Wade sighed, looked at his deputies. Then I'm afraid I have to insist. He nodded to Deacon. Deputy Cole, take Thomas Mercer into custody for his own protection. Deacon moved forward. Jake shifted, blocking him. Don't. Deacon's hand went to his sidearm. Son, I'm a law enforcement officer executing a lawful order. Step aside. The tension ratcheted up. 6 armed deputies, 1 SEAL, and Tom barely able to stand and watching his son prepare to fight a battle he couldn't win. Then Lily's voice cut through the standoff. Daddy. Everyone turned. The little girl stood beside the truck. Pink hat, pink coat, 7 years old and terrified. Scout pressed against her side, the golden retriever's training, keeping Lily safe. Jake's face softened. It's okay, sweetheart. Get back in the truck. Why are all these men here? Her voice was small. Are they the bad guys? Wade crouched down, smiled. The practiced smile of a politician. No, honey. We're the good guys. We're here to help your grandpa. Liar. Lily's voice didn't waver. You're the bad man, the one who hurt Grandpa. Wade's smile froze. Lily, honey, sometimes grown-ups have disagreements. But we're all friends here. My daddy says liars always smile too much. You're smiling too much. Out of the mouths of babes, Tom felt something close to hope. His granddaughter, fearless as her father, smart as her grandmother. Wade stood, the smile gone. Fine. We'll do this the hard way. He looked at Deacon. Arrest them both. Father and son. Obstruction. Resisting. Whatever charges, stick. The deputies moved forward. Jake's hand closed on his weapon. Tom's mind raced. 6 against 2. Lily in the crossfire. Titan injured. No way this ended well. Then Tom saw it, 30 feet away, half buried in snow near the barn. The emergency flare gun. Tom kept it there for winter emergencies. Signal for help when phones didn't work. And right beside it, barely visible in the dark, the propane tank. The one that fed the backup generator. 120 pounds of compressed fuel. Tom's SEAL training kicked in. Terrain, assets, angles. He'd been doing these calculations his whole adult life. Now he did them one more time. Jake, Tom's voice was quiet. When I say duck, you take Lily and you drop flat. Understand? Jake's eyes flicked to his father. Read the intention there. Gave the smallest nod. Wade was still talking, giving orders, playing the authority figure. He didn't see Tom moving. Slow, casual, leaning against the truck like he was too weak to stand. Tom's hand found the truck bed. The emergency kit he knew Jake would have. SEALs always had emergency kits. His fingers closed on cold metal. Road flare. Not the flare gun, but it would do. He pulled it free, palmed it. Wade. Tom's voice cut through the noise. One more thing. Wade turned, annoyed. What? You made one mistake. You thought I was too old, too broken, too afraid to fight back. Tom struck the flare against the truck bed. It ignited with a hiss of red fire, burning magnesium, bright enough to blind. 30 feet. The tank was 30 feet away. Tom's throwing arm was weak. Hypothermia had stolen his strength. His hand shook. One chance. SEAL training. 40 years old. Never forgotten. Breathe, aim, throw, duck. Jake grabbed Lily without hesitation, dropped flat, covered her completely. Scout dropped beside them, trained to protect. Tom threw. The flare tumbled end over end, sparks trailing like a comet. 30 feet, 20, 10, please. The flare hit metal, bounced, rolled against the tank valve. For one frozen second, the world held its breath. Then physics took over. The propane tank didn't explode like a movie bomb. No fireball, no mushroom cloud. But 120 pounds of compressed, fuel-finding ignition is still violence. A sharp crack like lightning hitting Earth. A burst of blue-white flame. A shock wave that turned snow into powder and sent it flying outward in a perfect circle. Tom felt the heat wave hit him, felt his weak legs buckle, went down. Wade Hale flew backward, hit the snow hard. Victor went down. Deacon stumbled, arms windmilling, lost his footing completely. And Titan moved, even injured, even shot, even bleeding. The Cane Corso moved like something built for this exact moment. Hit Deacon before the deputy could recover balance. Jaws closed on the gun hand. Bone cracked. Deacon screamed. The Glock fell into snow. Tom crawled forward, every muscle screaming, grabbed the weapon, pointed it at Wade Hale's face. Don't move. Wade lay in the snow, looked up at Tom, at the gun. His face showed something Tom had never seen there before. Fear, you don't have the authority. Wade's voice shook. You're not law enforcement. I'm a citizen stopping a murderer. Tom's hand was steady, close enough. Sirens cut through the blizzard, distant but getting closer. Multiple vehicles, more than the sheriff's department owned. Tom smiled. Remember that 911 call I made, the one your dispatcher logged? I told them to note the time. Note my statement. And I sent a copy of everything in that box to the FBI 3 weeks ago. Scanned every page, every photo, every piece of evidence. You're bluffing. The sirens got louder, closer, am I? 3 black SUVs came up the access road. FBI markings. They stopped. Doors opened. Agents poured out. Tactical gear. Weapons. Moving with the precise coordination of a federal task force. The lead agent was maybe 50, stocky build, face like a boxer who'd taken too many hits and kept fighting anyway. He walked straight to Wade, showed his badge. Special Agent Robert Mitchell, FBI Denver Field Office. Sheriff Wade Hale, you're under arrest for the 1995 murder of journalist David Sullivan. Federal corruption charges, obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent. Wade stared. Victor tried to run. 2 agents tackled him into the snow. Agent Mitchell looked at Tom. Mr. Mercer, he nodded. Good timing on that email. Took us a while to verify everything. Build the case. Wait for the right moment. Tom lowered the weapon, handed it back to Jake. You got the files, every page. Sullivan's family has been waiting 29 years for this. Mitchell turned back to Wade. We've been watching you for 6 months, waiting for you to make a move. He smiled. Trying to kill a federal witness was that move. Other agents were cuffing Deacon. Kyle, the corrupt deputies. Reading rights, loading them into vehicles. Victor was screaming, threatening lawsuits, threatening his father's connections. Nobody listened. Wade Hale, 68 years old sheriff for 40 years, just stared at the snow. Silent, beaten. Jake stood, helped Tom stay upright. Lily peered out from behind her father. Is it over, Grandpa? Tom looked at his granddaughter, at his son, at Titan still standing guard despite the blood on his shoulder, at the FBI agents putting Wade Hale in handcuffs. Yes, sweetheart, it's over. Agent Mitchell approached. We'll need your statement and the physical evidence. The actual box, it's in the well. Tom pointed. You'll need climbing gear to get it out. We brought climbing gear. Mitchell smiled. We brought everything. He paused. You did good, Mr. Mercer. A lot of people wanted to forget David Sullivan. Pretend he didn't matter. You made sure they couldn't. I just did what was right. Most people don't. That's why it matters. The FBI worked through the night, retrieved the box, photographed everything, took statements. By dawn, Wade Hale and his son were in federal custody. Deacon Cole had turned informant, giving up 30 years of corruption in exchange for a deal. Kyle Warren was cooperating fully. Tom sat in the back of an ambulance, paramedics checking his vitals, treating the hypothermia, the cuts, the burns. Titan sat beside him, freshly bandaged by a veterinarian the FBI had brought. Shoulder wound was clean, would heal. Jake stood nearby with Lily, father and daughter watching the sun rise over Montana mountains. Agent Mitchell came over one last time. We'll be in touch. Trial won't be for months. But with your evidence and Deacon's testimony, this is airtight. Wade Hale will die in prison. Good. Tom's voice was tired. What about Sullivan's family? His daughter Rebecca is still alive. Lives in Seattle. Teaches high school. She's been informed. Mitchell paused. She's grateful. Waited her whole life for this. Tom nodded. That meant something. Maybe everything. The ambulance wanted to take Tom to the hospital. He refused. Signed the waiver. Told him he was going home. Home's gone, Dad. Jake gestured at the burned-out shell of the house. Tom looked at the ruins. Everything he'd owned. Sarah's photographs. Her quilts. The life they'd built. Then we'll build a new one. Jake smiled. Yeah, we will. 2 weeks later, Tom stood where his house had been, the burned shell cleared away. Insurance process seeing blueprints for something bigger drawn up. Enough room for 3 generations. The trial was set for March. Wade and Victor Hale in federal custody. Deacon Cole had turned. The outcome certain. Agent Mitchell's car appeared on the access road. He handed Tom an envelope. Letter from Sullivan's daughter. Thought you'd want to read it. Tom unfolded the careful teacher's handwriting. Mr. Mercer, thank you for giving me back my father's memory, for making sure his death meant something, for being brave enough to fight when you had every reason to stay silent. My father believed in truth, in justice, in people doing the right thing even when it's hard. You honored that belief. You honored him. I will never forget what you did. Neither will anyone who knew him. Rebecca Sullivan. Tom folded the letter carefully. Put it in his pocket. She wants to meet you. When you're ready, Mitchell said. No pressure, just she wanted you to know. Tell her yes. Tom looked at the cleared ground. Tell her I'd be honored. Mitchell nodded, shook Tom's hand, drove away. Behind him, Lily's voice rang out. Grandpa, come see our snowman. Tom turned. Jake had Lily on his shoulders. Scout bounded through snow, and Titan's shoulder healed, stood watching over all of them. Can he live with us? Lily pointed at Titan. In the new house, Tom met Jake's eyes. His son nodded. Yeah, Tom's voice was certain. He's family. Lily cheered, slid off Jake's shoulders, threw her arms around Titan's neck. The big dog stood still, patient, gentle. Let the little girl hug him like he understood she needed it. The sun was high now. The blizzard was memory. Spring would come eventually. The new house would rise. Life would go on. Tom thought about David Sullivan, about a journalist who died trying to expose the truth, about a family that had waited 29 years for justice, about a dog who'd walked through a blizzard to save the man who'd saved him, about loyalty that transcends time. The wind blew cold across the Montana mountains, but Tom didn't feel it anymore. Felt only the warmth of knowing he had done something that mattered, made a choice that cost him everything and gave him everything back. Titan looked up at him, and if dogs could smile, this one did.